Add your text. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Generation Dan. Add your text here. It's in the top left corner. I guess if you're listening to this, it doesn't make any sense. Welcome to Generation Dan, where self-care is burping loudly.
It's absolutely. That is a scientific fact. That is something. John was making me laugh before he started. He's like, yeah, boy. It's like notifications on. And then, like Indiana Jones, every time I look at the timer, it has more time on it. He's like, I mean, metaphorically, clock's fine.
He's just going one after the other after the other.
What's up, John? You're awesome, buddy.
All right, well,
yeah. So we were supposed to have Landy Hampton on because I screwed up last time when I was sick when she was supposed to be on. Then yesterday I booked too many things for myself, and then I forgot to inform Atlas that I booked too many things after I'd specifically told them that I was only available when I had booked things.
Yeah. And then it was supposed to be now, and then now she's sick.
She's violently sick, which I'm like, you know what? I think we need to talk about self-care.
Yeah.
And okay, fun fact: Russia can fit Texas more than 62 times. Jesus, it's like we were talking about those raccoons and people's anuses. It's definitely.
See, now I'm just thinking of like a Texan meeting a Russian, right?
Yeah. Oh, is Russia just a European Texas? Possibly. It's a fair. I feel. Hey, we're both breathtaking. That's what happens when you're over 6 foot. The ladies don't know what to do. What's up, walkie-talkies are neat? Walkie-talkies are neat. I apologize. We had consistently been scheduling stuff not late, and I know that is your time to shine, sir. So welcome. Yeah. I have a Russian friend. So, okay, John, are they like European Texans? Because that seems, I feel like Europe needs a Texas. I think everywhere needs a Texas. For Canada, it's Alberta.
Okay, well, think of it this way: it is a very large amount of land, and it's very barren, very rough and tumble.
Yeah.
You have people
who like to kill things.
Like things. Like I feel like we're getting more and more similarities, and being that it's the dad side of my family tree, like it's
everyone's dad's a little bit Russian at some point. That seems fair.
Well, no. I mean, like Novak is fucking like Polish Russian. You know, means like newcomer, new guy, something like that.
The hard part is that like. I think we need to go back to empires, right? Where like, because right now they're like, these are the made up lines that we've decided on. Nah, you know? Whereas empires are like, no, this is mine. And I will have people kill you if you step on it. Britain meets Texas plus vodka. That's Texas as well. That's Texas is Texas plus vodka.
Oh, there you go. There's another similarity. A lot of ties to one specific alcohol, whiskey, vodka, like it.
Yeah, that's fair. Please don't need to get a red dawn in Canada. I feel like Vancouver has already fallen to the Asians. That's fair. That is a real thing.
Which is ironic because your wife is Asian, meaning that you too have fallen to the
I have. Well, listen. So technically, my wife is Chinese, but born in the UK and then came to Canada, and then I married her. So technically, I colonized myself. That is a legitimate thing.
Yeah, that's like empire within empire within empire.
Yeah, and I'm Greek, so it's like that's definitely. I fell to the Romans, and then and the UK. Yeah, that's totally fine. That all makes sense. Actually, on that note, before we hit self-care, I was watching an interview with Joe Rogan and Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr is like a doctorate level intelligent person. Right, like he's written a lot of books. Like he likes the science of comedy and of things, and he like that's why he's so quick-witted on stage. But he was saying how Rome didn't fall; it became the church, and the English Empire didn't fall; it became the Bank of England. And you're like, fuck, and you're just kind of going. Now the U.S., the United States Empire, is not falling; it's becoming warmongers. Like it's become the warmonger of the entire world, technically. Which you're like, they're the peacekeepers. Look at that. It's interesting how things.
Yeah, because like the whole like, so you had the Roman Empire and then the East and West, with the East being the Byzantines, right? Yeah. And they didn't call themselves that. We call them that. Yeah. In hindsight, but then you have like the successor to the Roman Empire. So you have the Kiev and Rus becoming the Russians because they were the Orthodox Church. You have the Holy Roman Empire calling themselves that. You have the Ottomans calling themselves the Roman Empire by the right of conquest because they took over Constantinople. Like you have like 4 or 5 different cultures being like, we're the Roman Empire now, and it's like,
and now they are
sure about that. Like
the United States Crusades. We need Indiana Jones. I feel. Okay, so somebody was saying how the new Indiana Jones is so true to life because it's a 90-year-old professor that isn't going to give up his tenure or his spot as a professor, which is the most realistic thing, which I'm like, holy shit, that burns like white fire in my veins. I love it. It's one of those things where you're like, that's the most realistic part about it is old people not willing to give up their spot. I get it.
I was about to be like, white fire in my veins is a really good like band name for my ongoing list of band names, and then I realized that's probably what like a KKK group of people called it.
It originates from a Wolverine comic book where Lady Deathstrike cut herself with a blowfish knife and then was like, it burns like white fire in my veins. And I was like, that is the most badass of lines I've ever heard. And it has always stuck in my crazy mind because I am nuts.
The last few I have on that list for people curious are Taser Napkin, Jimmy and the Demon, Nuggets on the Run, Fickle Edge, Molten Chocolate, and Flora and the Animals. There's many more.
Those are great. Those are top tier.
Told you. Yeah, it's just one of those things like if I hear it in everyday life, I go, all right, I'm adding to this. And it's like almost never have I had someone be like, we need a name for my band, and then I'll be like, here, take one. Like,
give me 5 of your favorite things. I'll get back to you. Yep, there you go. Yeah, I feel like that's
just we need.
You know, well, there's a song called "Chop Suey" by somebody. Yes.
Wait up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently they were like, oh, we don't know what to put for lyrics for this specific area. He goes, okay, come here. They walked into like a library or a bookstore. He goes, pick a book, pick the book, open the page, pick a line, read it out. That's the thing. And that's what he says. And apparently it just like magically works insanely well. There's a whole thing about it, but System of a Down. There we go. Yeah.
Lyrics. Okay. Wake up, grab a brush and put a little makeup, hide the scars to fade away the shakeup. Why'd you leave the keys upon the table? Here you go create another fable. You wanted to. Grab a brush and put a little makeup. You wanted to. Yeah, it's complete nonsense.
It's one specific thing where he's like something about his dad. How about Sensei Steven Seagal and the nunchucks? That sounds like a movie. Like that was like the fault because there was like Above the Law, License to Kill. No, License. What is it? What are the big? There are like 3 Steven Seagal movies where it was like just elbow breaking fury. It was just everybody got their elbow broken, and there was one with the Rastas. And then I think it was that Above the Law. I'm not sure, but Sensei Steven Seagal and the Nunchucks feels like his retirement movie. That's fine. And then so self-care, man. Yeah, License to Kill, Under Siege. Oh, it's a great set of titties in that
Under
movie.
Siege. Was Under Siege the one where it's like he's in like the tundra or something?
No, that's when he's on the boat. Right. He's on the boat, and Tommy Lee Jones is the bad guy. Gary Busey, also known as Nick Nolte, to my wife. My wife can't tell the difference between Nick Nolte and Gary Busey, which is fair because most people can't because they both look psycho. And like they also look like they have putty for face, which is just hilarious, and then fake teeth, which you're like, that's what money does to you.
See, now when you say putty, I know you mean like silly putty, but yeah. I think of like putty, the fucking
the guy there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Patrick Warburton on Seinfeld. That putty.
Victoria says they look alike, like they don't, but they also do. In her defense, like Yeah, there's a lot of areas where people look alike, and you're like, they don't look alike. Like, yes, but no, but yes, it's weird.
I had a similar thing where like I have 3 students that kind of sort of look like each other, and if they ever switch seats, the like muscle memory of where I remember them, like I've done it like 3 times now, and I feel awful.
Can I ask you a question? What
Yeah.
is the policy around nicknames for teachers? How do like teachers giving nicknames to students? Because
Okay.
realistically, there are some kids that you want to call like fart pants, right? And just like
Yeah.
that's going to ruin his life for the next 4 years. But
I try not to.
Yeah.
Because like okay, when I was in middle school, there was a kid whose last name was Shire.
Ooh.
My our PE teacher used to call him Frodo because Frodo is from the Shire. Shire, I'm not going to say his first name. What is Jewish, as the name implies, and short.
Ooh,
and
so
like
he looked like Frodo. He looked like a Baggins.
Yeah, and like the teacher's excuse was, Frodo's from the Shire. It's easier to remember that way. But you could just see the hurt on his face, where he's really fucking calling me a hobbit. I am 12, good sir. Like,
well, and also 12. You're like, that is hobbit sized. Like,
yeah. So
there's like 2 people who are 12 that aren't hobbit sized. Everyone else is a hobbit.
Yeah.
And gym teachers are the worst. Like,
usually it's the girls, because the girls grow earlier. Like in middle school, they're just taller than the boys.
Usually. I feel bad for some girls because like they end up being like 16 feet tall in comparison, and then they're like, nope, they were just like 5'6". You're like, that's it. They weren't actually tall, but everybody else was really short, and they're like they look lanky and stuff, and you're just like, yeah, she's probably gonna be gorgeous, and then everyone's like, oh, you look weird, and she develops a complex, and you're like, that kids are mean. Kids are.
They are. But anyway, so
6'12". Jesus Christ, John.
6 foot.
I didn't hit, so I was like 5'10" in grade 7. I think grade 6, grade 7, I started kind of, and it was kind of like when I forget which show it was, where it's like, oh, Bart Simpson takes the experimental medicine, and like half of him grows, and then the other half is and turns into an ogre. Like, that was grade 6 and grade 7. It was just like different parts were growing. Like all of a sudden I had size 12 feet, and I was like, what the fuck happened to your feet? I'm like, I don't know. I can swim really fast now. I'm like a dolphin. It's great.
It's I was somewhere in the middle of the pack for most of it. And then like, I thought I was just going to be relatively short. And then like my gap year between high school and college, I went from like 5'7" to 6 foot in a year.
That's a really late time too. Right?
Yeah, but it was like I was somewhere in the middle, and then it was like, oh shit, we forgot to give you the rest of your height. Here you go.
5'10", 5'6" in grade 8, or 5'10" in grade 6 is you were a big kid. Because John, you're like 6'4",
my head was always huge too. I think that
was like a bobblehead. That's
that was the indication. I think that I was going to be tall, because this was always kind of this size. I've told this story on the show before, but when I was on the golf team in high school, they were like, you have to wear your hat, otherwise you can't play. And I was like, coach, my hat doesn't fit. And then he's like, nonsense, it's one size fit.
It's definitely not.
Okay, you don't have to wear it. Like, my head was too big.
Yeah, I understand that. Sorry, I'm looking up a picture because there was a show when I was growing up that was called The Smoggies. Okay.
Smoggies?
It's called The Smoggies. I'm going to show you a picture because...
The Smoggies sounds like the fucking Mucinex boogers neighbors or something.
It's very similar. So this was essentially, they were the bad guys had like a boat and were polluting things, and the Smoggies were very, very small people with gigantic heads. So this is a picture of them. The little ones are the good ones. The Smoggies are the 3 tall ones. But the little people, at one point, they ended up, there was something that polluted and their hair fell out, and then their heads outweighed themselves, so they couldn't balance because now they didn't have their giant hair. It was the funniest shit ever. And every time somebody has a big head, I think about those guys who like got a haircut and then all of a sudden tipped over because they just couldn't balance, which is absolutely fucking hilarious.
Jesus.
Same AF. And like, couldn't wear fucking hats all the time.
I'm sorry we keep getting off topic about
but it's all relative.
So
listen, for myself, I just have I have a normal size head, but a giant face. So I'm like, people are like, oh, you got a big head. I was at Joey's when we went live when I was in Ohio, and he was like, "Oh, you can fit in my hat." Put his hat on my head, and it went down to here. And he was like, "What the fucking sorcery
What
is this?"
are
Like,
you?
yeah. Smoggies are the reason why Captain Planet turned evil. Those bastards were annoying. That's fair. That is definitely fair. So, self-care.
Yeah, self-care. So this weekend I didn't get to go to my locals because the store is like they're running some Pokemon thing that was taking up all the room, and they're like, we can't do tournaments for 2 weeks. So this last week and this coming week I won't get to. And like I realized after sometimes going off topic freely. Self-care.
Yeah. Everything is being labeled self-care. That's fine.
But yeah, so like after not getting to do that this weekend, I was like, God damn, I didn't like I just had the blues going into like Sunday and all of Sunday and today. And I was like, fuck, I didn't realize how much like going to a local tournament for a card game was so important to my mental health. Then I was talking to a friend of mine who's in med school, shout out Emrys, and was like, hey, you might have like a vitamin deficiency because you're on this keto diet. I was like, oh, yeah, that's a very real possibility. Yeah. I ate a tangerine this morning just to like test it, and nope, still kind of bummed out. So it might be something else.
So I've been trying to learn a little bit more about this because only later in life have I started to feel more what's the word for it? I guess impacted by my environment. And it's been weird because so like now that I've lost all the weight and everything like that, like I start to realize how being overweight really does affect you emotionally with your just a balanced perspective, I guess would you say? And also just like things I was going through and everything. But it's like I finally have started feeling more like myself, just with regards to what I do and how I do it and stuff like that. But on the note of self-care, it's like you start to realize things like how much what you consume affects you, and like every time I doom scroll before bed, I do not have a good sleep and I wake up feeling like shit. Like I get really stupid, like really not necessarily complex, but really aggravating dreams. Like, have you ever been in a dream where everything happens is like this would never like I would never allow this situation to happen, and now for some reason I'm completely out of control and it's happening and like no one's listening to me and I can't do anything about it, and it's extreme. Just you wake up and you're like, everyone is stupid, this is bullshit, like for no reason at all.
Kind of. Naps guys, I'm 41 and naps are king. Maybe we're just getting old.
A little bit too.
Yes and no. Okay, so like as an epileptic whose condition tends to manifest during sleep, I'm very wary of like the nap as a concept. Like anytime, so like I used to love to nap on airplanes, and now I can't. It's either turning into sand, something like that.
Yeah.
I had a really weird one.
More sand. Yeah, that's
fair. I had a weird one over the weekend. This I think also was part of the reason that I was all bummed out. Was, have you ever had a dream that like affected you so profoundly, but it wasn't necessarily negative, just weird?
Yes.
Yeah. So the dream was I was teaching, and the kids that I was teaching were rapidly aging from teens to adults to grown people to middle aged to old people to dust to babies, and like this is over the course of like 10 minutes that they're doing that. And apparently in real life, Katie said you were mumbling to yourself, I can't explain it any clearer than that, because they were either getting or not getting the concept based on their age at the time. So there was that, and then also my principal came in to watch, but it was my principal, the assistant principal, and one of the counselors' heads on one body. And so it was just like such a weird dream. Novak, that sound like literally, yes, the fucking movie Old.
That's coming out on Netflix like this week for Canada, which I'm like, I want to see it just because apparently like a brother and sister do it or something, and you're like,
Katie and I
It's just
watched it.
like,
It's very, very odd. It's a weird movie.
He's like, the worst part was, do you remember when he was in an interview? He was like, there's a perfect secret to movies. Spielberg knows it. Scorsese knows it. And now I know it. And then all of a sudden his movies went to shit. And you're like, what the fuck just happened? I don't understand. You're like,
yeah.
Did you explain that there was a secret and now you're not in the club? Yeah.
So with all that in mind, I can't remember what the first part of that was. I was explaining
Weird dreams.
Weird dreams. No, but before that, there was one thing before that I'm forgetting. Teeth turning to sand. Oh, naps. Okay, yes, so naps. I used to love to like nap on planes, but now I just can't. Or I have to pull a flight attendant aside and be like, "Hi there."
Just in case.
Just in case, if something does happen,
yeah,
don't you don't need to land the plane because of me. Just kind of be like stern, and I will be like grumpy, but I'll listen to what you say and just kind of let me know that I did. I'll probably figure it out after waking up, but like,
yeah,
don't
you get sore and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
don't call an ambulance. Don't fucking land the plane in
Albuquerque,
Des Moines or something. Yeah. Just don't.
Yeah,
and then
not a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it. It's cool.
Yeah,
everything will be fine.
Yeah. But like after you tell them that, they'll look at you like, "Are you fucking insane?"
Yeah,
like,
yeah. See, it's one of those things where you're like, I need you. Like you. Also, too, when you need help, you need to find someone who's also not a complete dipshit, right? Because when you say, "Hey, listen, I need to make you aware of a situation, just in case," they immediately lose their mind, and you're like, "Oh no. This is not helpful. This is not helpful at all. I'm going to give you all the steps, everything you need. Everything's going to be fine." And they're just like, "Oh, I don't know if I can handle that." You're like, no. Yeah. You're not handling anything. You're just following instructions. Just relax. Just calm the fuck down. And we're going to walk you through it. Right. And it's like, you need like, and that's the weird part, is because that, in my mind, should be a manager, right? Like that should be like the head flight of the flight crew or whatever is who you talk to. But now even managers aren't managers. They're just people who got the job, and they're like, "Hey, I got this job," and you're like, "Oh, are you capable?" They're like, "No, not at all." And you're like, "Oh, like, thanks."
I know it's weird to inherently, it would be insane to be like, "Have a good flight. Have a good flight. Nice to meet you. Have a good flight." And then having someone pull you aside, and then it's like the fucking "It's Always Sunny" Pepe Silva meme, like where you're like, "Okay, so this is what happens if I have a seat." I get that it's weird. I get it. But it's kind of like, I don't feel right just either going to sleep like normal. Otherwise, I will bring a book and I will stay awake the entire flight.
I feel like what you should do is instead tell them like, "Hey, listen, sometimes when I fall asleep, I turn into the Incredible Hulk. It's not a big deal. I will stay in my seat. You just got to be stern and say, 'Hey, sir, you have to stay in the seat whether you're the Incredible Hulk or not.'" And I feel like that would be more understanding, that instead you said, "Hey, I have epilepsy and I may go and have a seizure while I'm sleeping." Like, they would be less freaked out, be like, "Oh, well, you're still technically a superhero, so you just get large. Somebody will be uncomfortable. No big deal." Like, it's so crazy that it's more palatable. Does that make any sense? Like,
yeah,
which is like insane, but that's how we do it here.
Yeah. Another thing about the the other thing about the whole self-care thing is like, I'm having a like consult with a doctor this week about the possibility of surgery, which I've avoided for most of this time because I don't know. Have you ever heard of a dude named Phineas Gage?
Yes. What is that from?
So he was a like a railroad worker in the 1800s.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So he was like packing a thing, like a explodey thing. It exploded and went like up through his eye socket and punctured part of his brain.
He was never the same.
He was never the same.
Yeah.
He after that he became like,
aggressive,
grumpy, angry, aggressive, drank a lot.
His family didn't like everything, like kind of.
Yeah.
He was just a different person all of a sudden.
Right? And because this is like, there's a difference between surgery and having an exploding rod go through your eye socket.
Ish. A little bit. There's a fine line. Penis reduction surgery. Magnum tongue is.
If only. All right.
He's been stuttering constantly. He's just gotta. Yeah.
So For the longest time, I was like avoiding this, but now I'm thinking, getting older, um,
Do it while you can.
do it while I can, and then also
Yeah.
like if I, you know, decide if Katie and I have kids, it's like it takes a whole lot of like off our plate in regards to like staying up all night with the baby or like having your kid have to witness that, which I wouldn't wish on anybody.
Yeah.
So like the self-care of being able to, maybe it's not a outright cure or anything, but
Yeah.
I was pushing that off to the side for so long, and now I'm starting to think, oh, maybe I should at the very least have this consult with the doctor just to be like, all right, here are your options.
Also, too, you're at an age where you will be able to make a full recovery in any way, shape, or form, right? So if there are any setbacks, you can recover. You're of an age that your body will, work with you, as opposed to when you're older and you're like, maybe. Like that's the big thing. Like if you get knee replacement surgery, it has to be old enough that it will outlast you, but not so old that your recovery will be hindered, right? Because like at the age of 65, you are more prone to fall down and stuff like that. And if you have like knee replacement surgery and you fall down on that, you'll never walk properly again, period. Like that's just, you're done, right?
Yeah.
And also too, there's a lot of physio that you need to be doing on a daily basis to have the ease of movement when you have knee replacement surgery. So if you're at a certain age, you're not necessarily that active, which is also an issue. So you're like, oh, I'm going to be, not only do I have to work more than I ever have, but also my body doesn't want to do that in general because I'm older and I don't want to do stuff, right? So like that's where I'm at, where it's like I've just started, like the last few days started working out, doing full workouts again. So like I'm gonna start doing my hanging videos and stuff like that, just because like my this shoulder has been hurting me. I have like a tinnitus or something in the rotator cuff, which
isn't tinnitus the thing in your ear? Like
tendonitis? I don't know.
Tendonitis sounds yeah.
I don't know. Something with a T and itis. It's a titus. I have tits on my shoulder. And
Christopher Titus, if you ever want to come on this show. No.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, but that's like one of those things. So I'm like, if the more is it
tendonitis. Yeah.
Tendonitis. So the essentially what's happening is because I've lost all the weight and then I tend to sleep on my left shoulder just for digestion purposes. It's like, yeah, and also too, like it's just been uncomfortable, but it's like every day that I work out, it feels okay. And the more movement I do, the better it feels. But I gotta be Mr. Beast, come on. I will totally mess with your brain. I will find out if you're a murderer. I definitely think he's a murderer. There's no question there.
I'm just hoping for the day that I either get on the Daily Zeitgeist or Behind the Bastards. They come on here, or we get Patton Oswalt on here because he's my hero.
Dino needs to post more on OnlyFans vids of him working out. That may be coming. That and that makes two of us. Boom. Self-care. That's fine. No. But yeah, like that's the thing is like I had to take like 2+ weeks. So I took 2 weeks off while I had COVID. And then the last 2 weeks have been me kind of like, I started working at the Halloween Haunt, which I don't know if you guys seen pictures. I may have sent you guys, but that's me at the Halloween Haunt. And it's terrifying, but also too, it's like, I feel like I found my calling because I'm still scary as hell and making people pee their pants. I made a couple guys poop, but they were older, so I don't know if they were primed to poop already, but there was definitely oh, I shit my pants kind of thing situation. So, which made me feel great as a human being in general.
I just love the idea of like you hear the telltale fart or something, and yes, I pun definitely intended, but you hear the telltale fart and you're just like, yeah, like just
hilariously. So, guys, I have a bit where I talk about something that you learn as a fat guy, right? And because Atlas and I have had this argument many a times that Atlas says there are all sorts of people will shit their pants, and I'm like, no, children shit their pants, nobody else shits their pants. Like once you're an adult, you're not allowed to shit your pants, right? Now, but I explained that the rationale, like what you learn, what I've learned, and the knowledge I'm going to share to people is one thing: is that if you feel pressure at the top of your butthole, 90% of the time, it's a fart. If it's at the bottom of your butthole, 90% of the time, it's shit. And if it's in the middle, it's a 50-50 split. Like you just don't know. If you're chancing it, you're chancing it. Now, hilariously,
100% correct about that, by the way.
So hilariously,
since he's pointed it out to me, I'm like, oh shit.
I told Atlas, and he messaged me like in the middle of the night. I was like, holy shit, it's totally accurate. I'm like, I know. It's one of those things like, and also you got to be ready, right? You got to be like, is that the top? Yeah, this is the top. I'm good. Okay. But it's never trust a fart, bro. So this is the thing.
Never trusting a fart, self-care.
That's also self-care. So I was telling that bit to the guys that I work with, and one guy was sitting there and he had this look on his face of like, he's a German guy and he's playing a doctor and he just screams at people in German. He's doing a great job. It's absolutely hilarious. Shout out to Cody if you're out there. And so we're standing there and he has this look on his face and he's like, holy shit, it's true. And I'm like, did you just fart? He goes, I just farted and I felt it like right at the top of my butthole. I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. I'm just telling you that's the fact. And you're like, listen, once you know that, you're like, you can operate with, it's kind of like you always know the gun is loaded because you're like, hey, checked. Oh, top of the butthole. It's just a fart. We're good. No problem. It's just one of those things.
I have to. Okay. So he comes out and he yells at people in German and he just comes out. So just it's Einside Stalingrad and just
bro, it could be anything. People, the funny thing is he's a very good looking guy. He's like, it's very funny because like, so I'm 6'2", and when I'm wearing like a pair of like fancy hiking boots, so that Victoria got me, because they're like waterproof but also breathable in some sort of magical witchcraft shoes. I don't know, but so wearing them, I'm like around 6'3" wearing them, right? Okay. If you're sitting, is the top now the bottom of the butthole asking for a friend? Nope, still the top is the top. It's definitely still like maybe it would be the rear of your butthole versus the front of your butthole. That's how you would, because it would tuck under it, right? So if the front of your butthole, when you're sitting down, you feel pressure there, it's probably poop.
Okay, just think of it like you know how you have like stage left, stage right. So just think of that, but like you standing. That's stage top, stage bottom of butthole.
Exactly. So, the funny thing is, so I'm 6'3". Kyle, who's been on the show, is 6'6". So right now, me and Kyle are in and around the same weight. So like, if I haven't eaten and I have pooped, he might outweigh me because if he's eaten and hasn't pooped, right? Like that's the rationale. Like we're kind of neck and neck in that area. But the funny thing is people are like, oh, he's the big one. And I'm like, this is the weirdest experience because I've never not been the bigger person, which is hilarious. I misunderstood the assignment and there's poop on my ceiling.
And like
that will happen the first few times.
That's definitely a thing where like when you're used to being huge and then you just meet somebody who's like, that's probably what's going to happen at my wedding because I'll be meeting you IRL for the first time.
Yeah. It's going to be weird. It's you're going to see me and you're like, you're a tall person. I'm like, and it's so like other guys that are working the haunt are like 5'11", 6 foot, and they walk up to me and Kyle talking, and they're all like, I'm usually the big guy, and I'm like, yeah, man, we're all huge. It's not. It's just. And
then they ask you how tall you are, and that's when you say 5'9" and watch them panic.
Bro, I have never tried that because I'm like, I have this weird thing where I'm like, I can completely fabricate an entire existence. That's an easy thing for me. But at the same time, like it doesn't come to like just to totally fuck with people. Like the idea of saying, oh, I'm 5'9", I can't like that. Never like you've said it, and I'm like, I so am dying to pull that on somebody because like throughout the entire haunt, I'll look at people and I'm like, oh, you're little. Oh, that means you're delicious, and they're just like, fuck, and run away, which is great.
Yeah.
And then like I point at little kids, I'm like, the little ones are the tasty because they're so bendy, and they just are like, get me the hell out of here. It's very enjoyable. I've also made a few women definitely pee their pants. A lady asked me for a number. That was a weird experience because then I'm like, you're very promiscuous. And she was like, oh.
This is especially going to be interesting because one of my groomsmen is like 6'2".
Yeah.
He's like visibly taller than me. Okay. Shout out Dan. Not the Dan that the podcast name comes from. That's incidental.
Maybe, who knows?
Dan, in regards to this podcast, is an acronym.
Yes. That no longer applies, but still.
That no longer applies, but who cares?
That's okay.
So I'm curious to see, like, because it was just the sort of thing with him and I where I just know he's taller than me. I don't know how much taller than me he is. So
okay.
Guess we'll see.
Fair.
And then, yeah, I think off the top of my head, that's the only person who's like visibly huge.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, like, even now people are like, I'm 6'2", and people are like, no, you're not. You're definitely 6'3", and I'm like, I'm not 6'3". They're like, you're definitely 6'3", and I'm like, I don't think so.
The only person who's like, I'm shorter than you think I am.
Well, that's the weird thing is because I'm like, also like I stand straighter and I generations Dino and Novak. There you go.
No, it's like, okay, so our original third co-host was named Nick.
Yeah.
So Dan comes from Dino, Atlas,
and Nick,
and the non-existent Nick.
Yeah.
And then I remember when we were like trying to think of a name, we were like, what happens if someone leaves? And we're like, it's not going to happen. Cut to that happening 3 times total over the course of this show. And then, like, when we first got Caleb, we were like, do we change the name? We're like, yeah, fuck it. And then it's fine.
Well, yeah, because Generation Dak does not sound proper.
Yeah. Nor does Generation Dak again, because that's another C name. So fuck it. It's Dan. Who cares?
Oh, fun times. But yeah, so that's like, it's weird because like I even like in my maze, because I have like a specific area where I freak people the fuck out, and people will come in there and I'm like hunched over and like just leaning on stuff, but then they start to get closer and they're like, you're big, and I'm like, yeah, you're small. And it's like I'll have guys who are taller than me, but they're like lanky guys, and they're just like, nope. And I'm just like, you're taller. What's the big deal? Like, it's very weird. I have to tell people all the time, your opinion of me doesn't invalidate my factual height. Also, that's true. That's fair.
I mean,
yeah.
I have students who are taller than me, and it's definitely interesting.
For real.
Yeah.
So at the age of, hold on, are you 30? You're 30.
29.
You're 29.
I'll be 30 in February.
You'll be 30 in February.
Yeah.
So like, you're just starting to get stronger as like, just as a man. It's a weird, so in the next 5 years, you're going to start to get stronger and go, I don't remember being that strong, but it's just like a man thing, like where you just get stronger. And like, and it kind of peaks around early 40s where you just start to like, oh no, I'm a man. I know how much adrenaline, like, it's kind of like your body's like, oh, adrenaline wasn't a button, it's a knob. We can just crank that shit up. Like, it's a weird thing. But like, you start to have it, like, you don't realize, like, especially for myself, like my parents instilled this whole idea of don't touch anyone. And that has resulted in a complex where I'm like, I don't like hugging people. I don't like touching people. I'm like, people high five and I'm like, don't touch me. Just get the fuck away from me. You know, like I shake hands. That's what I do. And
so I'm guessing physical touch is the lowest thing on your fucking
absolutely like non-existent. Like I just where like, and people hug me and I'm like, just please don't touch me. It's just fucking weird, right? I'm like, what are you trying to get from me, right? Like, what do you want? Emotions? Go fuck yourself, right? So
I gotta say, one of the best things about like
being a hippie,
or being raised by hippies, but also like the idea of getting older, learning new words, society in general trying to learn about itself more.
True.
Is that you have more ways to express opinions and like your views of the world and stuff, like the whole fucking hierarchy, like love languages, right? Where that just sounds stupid on paper, but like it's so nice to be able to express like how you feel good in a relationship. Like gift giving is the fucking bottom for me. And Katie knows that.
Yeah. See, that's I like, it's weird because it's one of those things where like I think it's important to learn about yourself, but like like for me, like one of the big things is people just doing what they're supposed to do as good as I know that they can do it. Like when they give top tier effort because I know that I do top tier effort all the time. Like that's my MO. If I'm not giving top tier effort, I'm not involved. I don't chime in, right? And that's why people are like, hey, how come you aren't, jumping in the conversation? I'm like, I have nothing to add. I'm not, and like that's like yesterday, interestingly enough. So yesterday, kind of like I was just overwhelmed, and I am like, because I had like 3 things to do over the course of the day, and I'm like, that's too many things. I'm not okay. There's too many things. I don't like too many things. Like right now, I add one thing.
I have a doctor's appointment at 4 p.m. I can't go to breakfast at 10.
That's it. Absolutely. Yeah. I can eat breakfast at home in the comfort of my underwear. That's it. I can't go out and have an event like that's. It's just too many things.
Yeah. And which for people wondering what the rest of the love languages are. So acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts. Those are the 5.
Yeah. Continue. I don't know how to respond to people giving me things. Or Victoria likes buying stuff and giving it to people, which I'm like, that's fantastic because I just give people cash, and that's and instead like that's like every time that I've bought Victoria a gift, she has exchanged it and or forced me to give more money because she wanted to upgrade it, and I'm like, how about this? Here's money, do whatever you want. That's it. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? I don't have a job. I'm not giving you shit. How about that? Suck it. So, which she's been very kind about and understanding. But at the same time, it's one of those things where you're like, hey, I just 6 being called a good boy unironically. So
that would fall under words of affirmation, my dude.
It's one of those. Listen, like when somebody says good boy, you're like, number 1, I'm a man. Number 2, I'm not good. I'm chaotic.
I say this in complete earnestness. What percentage of our listener base are dogs?
50.
I don't like compliments. I'll say thank you, but it's odd. I mean, like
very odd. Yes.
Yeah, I get it. I think if I had to put this in order, I think it's words, physical touch, service, quality time, gifts. Yeah.
What's up, Zaragoza? How are you, sir? Woof.
Zero gonna zero.
This
or is it Zaro? How do you pronounce it? I've been saying Zaro this entire time.
It works. Spell it out phonetically. That way we can all be a little smarter. See, this is the thing: is when you're dealing with people like I like it when people are. So this is going to sound ridiculous now that I'm thinking about how to piece it together. It's like if I lift up the side of a car, people go, wow, you're really impressively strong. And I'm like, thank you. Yes, I am. That is factual, but also like I eat 7 Subway sandwiches at one sitting and people go, wow, man, you have quite the appetite. I'm like, yes, that's true. I can eat an entire cow. It's amazing. Right. Like it's this weird dichotomy of I need recognition, but also like as a form of praise for what I do. So like you normally do in your regular everyday spelling of Zaragoza. That's fair. That's
very neutral vowels. Okay, so I'm using Zaro.
Very neutral vowel. There you go.
Okay, whatever. Fuck it. It's Zaro.
Hey, listen. What matters is we're all talking about self-care, and that's the important part.
Yeah.
But that's like that's the thing is like it's a good thing, but at the same time, people are getting kind of wrapped up in it. Like I found that the hard part about knowledge or learning about oneself is more so how you kind of get bogged down in all the details, right? And like, let me try and explain. Is the idea where you're like, listen, you should be okay to care for yourself, to take that time you need. Like, hey, if you cancel plans, you cancel plans. Now, if you're constantly canceling plans, which I have a friend who does that constantly. Dino sounds like we are cats. Love me, but only on my terms. That's 100% accurate. I'm like some sort of hybrid wolf man, like cat man. I'm cat man. Like I'm very dangerous and giant size, but also I wish I was touched. Don't you fucking think about touching me. How dare you? Like it's very that way. But so it's like it's that weird thing where at some point I feel like self-care, like you it has to have like a scheduled time of the day where Victoria says you are the giant cat from the cartoon. Okay, Atlas, you're probably gonna enjoy this cartoon. There's a on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just for everybody, there's like they're 20-minute episodes. It's called The Masterful Cat is Depressed Again Today. Okay, The Masterful Cat is Depressed Again Today, and it is the funniest, crazy cockamamie shit you've ever watched. But also, too, you're like, this makes complete sense. I feel like this is the future. Like, it's a girl who is completely overwhelmed by her existence. However, she adopts a stray cat, and the stray cat grows to like bigger than human size, and does all her house cleaning and cooking. And like, the cat who's Yakuje is the master of all cats. It's the weirdest, like he's almost like the cat god. It's insane, but also you watch it and you're like, I need a cat like that. That guy's awesome, right?
So Clifford the big red dog, but a cat?
Like, but useful. Like does all the house chores, cooks like, and also cooks like Michelin star level meals for her to bring to work. So all of her coworkers are like, wow, how do you do that? She's like, I don't know how to do that. And they're like, who does it? He's like,
the eldritch horror that lives in my house.
It's absolutely magical. And but also too, like the cat doesn't really talk, but also like has like this giant Clifford is an agent of chaos. 100%. That's a guy. Clifford is absolutely insane. Like when you read the Clifford books and like as an adult you look back, you're like, oh, get fucked. Like there's no way that I would allow that to like
Curious George.
It's yeah.
Or Amelia Bedelia. Amelia
like,
Bedelia was fucking horrifying.
I don't even know who that is. But Curious George, number one, I feel like Curious George was peak monkey, right? Like he was the monkiest of monkeys. Was he a monkey?
He was a monkey.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Whatever.
He had a tail. I can't remember.
Okay, no, so he doesn't. No, Mandela, no. He doesn't have a tail.
Okay. All right, so he might be some kind of ape or chimp. So Amelia Bedelia was it was these children's books about a girl, and she would take everything literally. So the whole like shtick was like, you know, she works for this family, and they're like, dress the turkey, and then she puts like actual clothes on this turkey, like shit like that. You know,
that is actually hilarious, but also
I mean they're kids' books, you know.
Yeah, well,
like, Katie got a The Office children's book for her classroom, and it's like about Dunder Mifflin, but it's like a kindergarten classroom, and it's like, I want to read this thing because I have to, right?
That seems insane.
I would also love to. Okay, so I recently rewatched Breaking Bad. And,
right.
And like, and then of course the algorithm was like, oh, you've rewatched Breaking Bad. Check out all this, you know, stuff. So I saw one where it was Breaking Bad, but the South Park intro, where it's like, going down to ABQ tonight, like, you know, hiding from the DEA, slinging crystal, like just stupid. Fun, stupid, but stupid. And I just love crossover shit like that. It brings me happiness.
Listen, just sorry. Also, just so you understand, so do you remember when Cartman sang the "Math Has Got Me Working" song? No. Okay, so it was like something you would hear on a farm where they grow cotton. Okay, that kind of a song. And it's extremely not appropriate.
I remember them doing California Love, but it's about homeless people, right?
Well, this one it's Master got me working. Someday Master gonna set me free. And you're like, holy shit. Yeah, it's extremely
Cartman Wood.
Yeah, Cartman Wood, exactly. Yeah. Amelia Bedelia would have been good for me coming from a non-native. It was yeah, that's true.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't even think about that from a like.
You got to watch the Archer episode where he's on the boat, the pirate boat, and he's like, "Yeah, you can't translate."
I can't do idioms.
Yeah, idioms don't translate, and you're like, shit! Like, half of the language is idioms. That's fair. So
here, I put it in the chat.
See here.
Would have been good. It's like a little.
What do you want me to do? You want me to put it in the thing?
I'll
put it in the comments.
Oh,
Can you put it in the comments?
I'm not sure. I
No,
think with the
it's
comments
there
I can
now.
only. Okay.
So, but the funny thing was, like, we were working at the Halloween haunt, so I was like, darkness got me working, evil's gonna set me free. And Kyle just about died because he was like, that is so inappropriate. I love it. I'm like, that's what I do. Hungarian moment. Oh, totally. Listen, it's one of those things where you're like, especially
Hungarian.
English is a horrible language when it comes to what it has become, right? Like,
Because
English
it's
is
it's
very
like 6 different languages in a trench coat.
a trench coat made of a quilt. Like, it's absolutely, you're just like, none of this makes any sense, and it's all backwards and upside down.
Well, because
So,
you have the
Latin.
Arabic and Indian numbers. You have Latin for a lot of the root words. It's a Germanic language, technically. You have, because of Latin, you then have French, Spanish, Portuguese, all like contributing to it. Like, look at all this. That's already 6 different languages.
And also too, you have the derivation of, like, in Europe, if you know ancient Greek and Latin, you can almost communicate in every language, like, there, because it's a hodgepodge of both of those languages, right? And like, it wasn't until, like, they were teaching ancient Greek in schools up until the 80s, like that. Like, my dad, when he went to school, it was in ancient Greek. Like, that's how they did things, right? So, and then, like,
I took Latin in high school. Like,
so it's like, and then you're like, oh, let's be honest, we know lots of people who speak Canadian on language. Oh, that's also true. There's a guy on TikTok who does it, and you're like, someone's like, hey, can you just do an entire TikTok in Canadian? And he's just like, yeah, buddy. And you're like, just goes off, and you're like, yep, I understood every word of that. And they're like, shit. It's just one of those things where you're like, yeah, it's just backwards. Don't forget Latin alphabet. Jesus.
Yeah.
How many characters are in the Latin alphabet?
I think it's something like 24.
Greek is 24, but there are a lot of letters that are 2 sounds.
Like, like you have what's it called? Like, where you have kappa for the hard C sound. 23 letters, 21 of which.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's no C in Greek. There's only a K.
Yeah.
Right. That
doesn't. So.
But there's a X, which is KS, and you're like, this is so.
Yeah. Psi. And then also psi, like PSI.
Yeah. Psi.
Yeah.
It's okay. That's the weird part is too that, like, people are like, oh, delta. You're like, no, that's not a word. It's delta. There's no delta. And like gamma is a gamma, not gamma. Go fuck yourself. So, like, beta, beta is vita. You're like, a B is a V sound in Greek. So you're like, that's not even accurate. Sons of bitches.
So according to Britannica.com, the classical Latin alphabet consisted of 23 letters, 21 of which were derived from the Etruscan alphabet. In medieval times, the letter I was differentiated into I and J and V into U, V and W, producing an alphabet equivalent to that of modern English with 26 letters. So
yeah,
it's like a fucking nightmare. It is insane.
Well, that's why, and you're like, that's the funny part is when people are like, listen, if somebody knows another language, there's a very good chance that they're way more intelligent in that language than they are in English, which you're like, yeah, because English is completely fucking backwards and upside down, right? So Latin influences and French influences are often considered to be separated influences. Not in English. Get fucked, all of us. That is basically. See, that's the weird thing is, like, I've been trying to learn new things as a form of self-care. Which, like, I always keep my copy of this book, which is I told the story about how so it's Lucretius, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Plotinus, all their books in here, which I'm trying to get through Marcus Aurelius because I think it's very enjoyable, but just as a form of learning and expanding my mind, because I think I'm going to be more. Also, the same reason why I've been doing handfuls of mushrooms regularly. Also, because I'm like, see, this is the thing. I realize, in the great words of Taylor Swift, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. I get it. It's fine. And I'm like, if I want to break through to the next level, I have to overcome the self, and that, like, I find that at this point in my life, that is the biggest form of self-care that I can be experiencing, is conquering my own poor nature, right? Been listening to a lot of episodes. Listen, it's harsh, but it's not wrong. And that's one of those things that I really embraced when I was a teen and in my early 20s. Anyway, off to buy some Hefe sexy products.
GI I'm not JK. Oh, okay.
Done. But
of course.
That's the thing is, like, when I was younger, people were like, you're too harsh, you're too harsh, you're too harsh. And I'm like, no. I am the right amount of harsh. You guys aren't harsh enough, because a lot of what we realize now is like people strive and grasp for comforts to comfort oneself. And you're like, yeah, comfort is what defeats you. Your discomfort is what makes you grow as a human being, which sounds insane, right? But it's the same idea where I heard the explanation for like working out or running, or which running is horrible. So let's nix that. Just say working out, physical activity. Physical activity sucks at the time, but makes you feel great afterward. Whereas drugs make you feel great at the time and horrible afterward. So that's one of the things where you're like, you have to, there's no truer words than no pain, no gain, right? Like it's one of those things where you don't really realize how important a certain amount of suffering is in your existence as a form of self-care. Speaking of Yefe, it turns out she's actually a real person. Damn, I didn't know that. I'm a vanilla pervert, so I don't know what that is. Sorry, Zaragoza.
That's going on my band name list.
Vanilla pervert?
Vanilla pervert.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Uncanny self of her is actually just a person with a beauty filter. Yeah, well, listen, there are a few countries. That's the other thing, is that people have started filtering everything, and that is really bad for you. It's bad for your entire existence. Like, being able to see yourself, like that idea, like I remember dealing with this when I was really young, was like the idea of looking in the mirror of your existence, where you're like, that's a hard thing to see yourself accurately, because nobody wants to see their flaws, right? And then people, especially we're living in an age where people are like, I'm living my best life on the streets. But it's the idea is that you're like, there's a certain degree of where you're like, are you living your best life, or are you living your impulsive best? Which at some point, yeah, I get it. But that's one of those things where you're going, you know what? Taking time for yourself, like the one thing, like, you know how people are like, take 10% of your paycheck and save it. And I'm like, listen, how many times for ourselves at the end of the day, we're like, okay, now I got to go work out, or now I got to read this thing that I'm trying to get through. Now I got to do this stuff. And you're like, that's backwards. Like, you've spent all of your energy, all of your mental power, all of your will on other people and other things, when you're like, what you really need to do is wake up early and save that 10% for yourself before anyone is up. You read that book, you do that workout, you do that preparation for your meals, you do all that stuff that only,
or just take a damn second, like sit in your kitchen with a cup of coffee and like greet the morning, whatever. Absolutely. Like, and now I'm thinking like fucking Every Morning by Sugar Ray just got a whole lot like deeper.
You don't, like, that's the thing, is for so long our worlds were molded by the lyrics of song, right? Mm-hmm. Poetry, stories, music. That's how we transfer knowledge. Because think about it, like, I'll tell you this, it's hilarious, is that I have trouble remembering the order of the letters for the Greek alphabet going forward, but I can say it backwards because it's a little song.
It's also a little song going forward. That's how I learned it.
Not in Greek.
Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon. No.
But going backwards, and people were like, what? Holy shit. And I'm like, yeah, like it's an abbreviation, and it doesn't technically work, but once you piece it together, it's like, yeah, it's a poorly spelt derivation of those words. But so it makes sense in Greek, but I'm like, going forward, I always mess it up. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, just because I can't remember. But that's the thing, is that's why poetry and song were so important, because that's how we would communicate things, right? And you don't even realize, like, think about it. I had an epiphany when I was reading a book, like in my late 20s, when a guy was like, oh, how are you going to break your fast? And I was like, break your fast? Breakfast? And I was just like, oh, like you're going like that's the dumbest thing in the world, but you're going, ta-da! You're like that's.
I had a similar thing with like I do these like I do a word of the day with my kids, and lycanthropy was one of them. And I was like, okay, you know how like Underworld Rise of the Lycans, and they're like, yeah, I'm like wolf, and then thrope, like anthropology, right? So wolf man, and they're like, oh shit, like, so for that, take a moment, look at yourself, and every morning there's a single tear dripping down my face as I look on in the cracked mirror of regret.
Oh, way to bring it down. There you go.
Come up with the second half of that in the comments below. But yeah, no, for real. Like for what is your self-care?
Yeah, absolutely.
To our listeners, either in the comment section or I'll put a little thing in the Spotify, whatever.
Maybe we can do a poll. That's exciting.
Yes, I do it as a poll. So yeah,
what
if you want to
self-care?
Reach out to us at Generation Dan wherever you find the social medias,
or even on Twitter, where it is just a plethora of whores and prostitutes. It is amazing.
It is a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
play that on flop radio. Yeah, for real. So yeah, do that, or you can. Where can they follow you?
Oh. At Dino the Genetic Marvel. I am finally getting up and running, and I am going to start doing things and stuff. Liken, like him, likens, like hymns. There you go. It's like science, something like that.
Something like that in the movies. You can follow me at Atlas Novak on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok.
He's a real person.
Yeah, or you can follow my YouTube channel, The Epileptic Comic. It's mostly just sketches about what it's like to have epilepsy, but there's other stuff. Or if you like the trading card game Card Fight Vanguard, there is Nexus at Night, which is my podcast for that. That's also on YouTube and all that other good stuff. Yep. So thanks everybody for watching, listening, and self-care.
Self-care. Let us know if you guys want us to do a Halloween episode next week too.
Oh yeah, because that's like the Sunday before Halloween, right?
Yeah.
We should do it in costume, right? Okay, so Katie and I are going as Florence Pugh and the boyfriend's character from Midsommar, where like I'm the guy in the bear suit, the bear, and then she's Florence Pugh's character. Post the links, do a podcast.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do it in costume, maybe not. But
I'm gonna see if I can find one of my old costumes. I do have a couple floating around here. I gotta find
or just be in your costume from the fucking.
No, Victoria won't let me in the house like that. I have to get they're kind enough to get remove our makeup at the end of the night.
Okay.
So then they mostly take it off, but so I still have a little bit on my ears. I still got to shower, and I've been walking around with because they put makeup on my eyes. And I just I'm like, it's like eyeliner or mascara. They're like, it's neither of those things. It's just makeup. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, to me, I'm like, if it's on my eye, it's mascara. That's it. Yeah. And they were making fun of me because they're like, that's how all men are. I'm like, yeah, because none of it makes any sense. It's all just eye makeup. Yeah, it's mascara. Sure.
Because it's either going to be that or I'm going as Bob at school from Bob's Burgers. Atlas is the bear. Yeah, accurate.
That's spray paint some abs, Billion.
Dude, you totally could get the helmet for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll just get the helmet and just wear it in general.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. See you later. Everyone.